In a quiet, small Georgia town, a young girl vanished without a trace. While playing in her grandmother's garden, leaving her mother and the authorities desperately searching for answers, the child's disappearance haunted the once peaceful community, with residents struggling to believe such a tragedy could happen in their midst. But one day, after over 2 months, with no clues, a park janitor discovered a crucial detail that would change the entire case in ways no one could have imagined. Before we dive into this shocking story, let us know where you're watching from today. And if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. The warm Georgia sun was beginning to dip low in the sky as Patricia Carter's car pulled into the driveway of her modest, single-story home in Elder Fork. The 36-year-old African-American woman sat behind the wheel for a moment, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly as she took a deep breath. It was Tuesday, May 12th, and she had just returned from yet another fruitless visit to the police station. As she stepped out of the car, the weight of the past 2 months seemed to press down on her shoulders. 2 months of relentless searching, of sleepless nights of awe that flickered like a candle in the wind. 2 months since her 9-year-old daughter Natasha had vanished without a trace. Patricia fumbled with her keys, her fingers trembling slightly as she unlocked the front door. The house that once echoed with Natasha's laughter now felt cavernous and empty. She stepped inside, and her eyes immediately fell on Natasha's colorful backpack, still hanging by the door where her daughter had left it that fateful day. The sight of it sent a sharp pain through Patricia's heart, a reminder of the life that had been so abruptly interrupted. She moved further into the living room, her gaze drawn to the couch where Natasha's favorite stuffed elephant sat untouched. Patricia remembered how Natasha would cuddle with it while watching cartoons, her infectious giggles filling the room. Now the silence was deafening. With a heavy sigh, Patricia dropped her purse on the kitchen counter. As she did so, a stack of papers slid out. New missing person flyers she had picked up from the print shop on her way home. Each one featured Natasha's bright smile, her dark eyes twinkling with mischief and joy. Patricia traced her finger over her daughter's face, willing the image to come to life. As she stood there, the events of March 12th played through her mind. For what felt like the millionth time, it had been a normal day. Patricia had dropped Natasha off at her grandmother Eloise's house before heading to work. Natasha had been playing in the backyard while Eloise prepared lunch inside. Then, in the brief moment it took for Eloise to answer a phone call, Natasha had simply disappeared. The police had been called immediately. They had combed through the neighborhood, interviewed everyone within a 5 mi radius, and found absolutely nothing. It was as if Natasha had vanished into thin air, leaving no trace behind. Patricia moved to the kitchen, her body operating on autopilot as she filled the kettle and set it on the stove. Making tea had become a ritual, a small act that gave her the tiniest semblance of normalcy. In a world that had been turned upside down as she waited for the water to boil. Detective Morgan's words from earlier that day echoed in her mind. "We're still looking, Miss Carter," but without new evidence to pursue, the unspoken implication hung in the air that maybe it was time to accept that Natasha might never be found. But Patricia couldn't accept that she wouldn't. As long as there was breath in her body, she would keep searching, keep hoping, keep fighting to bring her little girl home. The kettle whistled, startling Patricia out of her thoughts. She poured the hot water over a tea bag, watching as the color slowly seeped into the water. As she did so, she made a silent promise to Natasha, wherever she might be. "I will find you, baby girl. No matter what it takes, I will bring you home." Patricia carried her steaming cup of tea to the kitchen table, where her laptop sat open. With a deep breath, she settled into the chair and logged into Facebook, the Find Natasha Carter page she had created. 2 months ago greeted her, its follower count now surpassing 3,000. The outpouring of support from the tight-knit community of Elder Fork and the surrounding areas had been overwhelming. She scrolled through the page, her eyes skimming over the countless messages of encouragement and hope. Local businesses had shared her posts, offering their windows and bulletin boards for flyers. Strangers had organized search parties, combing through areas the police had already searched, hoping to find something, anything that might lead to Natasha. as she read through the comments on her latest update. A notification for a new message appeared. Patricia's heart skipped a beat, as it did every time she received a new message. Each one held the potential to be the breakthrough she so desperately needed. She clicked on the notification, and a message from a man named Howard Jenkins popped up. His profile picture showed a middle-aged white man with kind eyes and graying hair. The message read, "I think I found something that might belong to your daughter. A pink necklace with beads and a heart pendant. I tried calling several times, but couldn't reach you." Patricia's hands began to shake as she quickly navigated back to her most recent post. Just hours ago, she had shared a detailed description of Natasha, including a mention of her favorite necklace. A pink beaded one with a heart pendant that Patricia had special ordered for her birthday there. In the comments section was a message from Howard. "I believe I've seen this necklace at Memorial Park, still there as of this afternoon," with trembling fingers. Patricia checked her call history. Sure enough, there were 3 missed calls from an unknown number within the past 2 hours. How had she missed them? She had been so vigilant about answering every call, terrified of missing that one crucial piece of information that could lead her to Natasha. A surge of hope coursed through Patricia. But it was tempered with caution. She had received false leads before, well-meaning people who were mistaken. Or worse, cruel pranksters who found amusement in a mother's desperation. Each time the disappointment had been crushing, leaving Patricia feeling more hopeless than before. But she couldn't ignore this. Even if it turned out to be nothing, she had to follow up on every possible lead. Natasha's life could depend on it. Patricia took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. She picked up her phone, her finger hovering over the call button for a moment before she pressed it. The phone rang twice before a man's voice answered, "Hello." Patricia's heart raced as she introduced herself. "This is Patricia Carter. I received a message about a necklace you found." "Yes, Ms. Carter," the man replied, his voice gentle but direct. "I'm Howard Jenkins. I've been the janitor and groundskeeper at Memorial Park for the past 15 years. Patricia listened intently as Howard explained how he had noticed the necklace earlier that day. "I was cleaning near the central statue," he said, "when I saw this pink beaded necklace with a heart pendant hanging from the statue's outstretched hand." Howard's voice grew more animated as he continued. "I remembered seeing your Facebook posts about your missing daughter and the distinctive necklace you mentioned. That's why it caught my attention." Patricia's grip on the phone tightened. Could this really be Natasha's necklace? How did it end up in the park? Her mind raced with possibilities, each more unsettling than the last. "I wasn't completely certain it was the same necklace," Howard admitted. "I didn't want to remove it, in case it was evidence. So I tried calling you while I continued my work at the park." "Is the necklace still there?" Patricia asked urgently, already reaching for her car keys. "Yes, it is," Howard confirmed. "I've been keeping an eye on it to make sure no one takes it." Patricia felt a rush of gratitude towards this stranger who had gone out of his way to help. "Why didn't you contact the police directly?" she asked, curious about his decision to reach out to her. First, Howard's voice took on an apologetic tone. "I wanted to check with you first, to confirm if it might actually be Natasha's necklace. I didn't want to potentially waste police resources if it turned out to be nothing." Patricia understood his reasoning, but every moment felt crucial now. "I'm coming to the park right away," she said, her voice tense with urgency. "Can you wait there until I arrive, of course?" Howard agreed readily. "I'll be near the central fountain statue where the necklace is located." As Patricia ended the call, she felt a mix of hope and anxiety churning in her stomach. This could be the break she had been praying for, the first real lead in 2 agonizing months. But she couldn't let herself get carried away. She had to approach this calmly and methodically. She quickly dialed Detective Morgan's number as she hurried to her car when it went to voicemail. She left a brief message explaining the situation and that she was heading to Memorial Park. The drive to the park felt both excruciatingly long and alarmingly short. Patricia's mind raced with possibilities. If this was indeed Natasha's necklace, how did it end up in the park? Was Natasha trying to leave a clue? Or had something more sinister happened as she pulled into the parking lot? Patricia took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever she might find. She stepped out of the car, her eyes scanning the park for Howard. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the grass, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the old oak trees that dotted the park. Patricia spotted a figure standing near the central area. An older man in a gray maintenance uniform with Memorial Park staff embroidered on the chest pocket as she approached. She saw his concerned expression soften into one of recognition. For a moment, Patricia had feared this might be a cruel prank, that no one would actually be there waiting but seeing Howard. Standing there respectfully by the statue gave her a flicker of hope. Patricia quickened her pace as she approached Howard, her heart pounding with a mixture of hope and trepidation. The park was relatively quiet for a Tuesday afternoon, with just a few dog walkers and joggers circling the perimeter. The tranquil atmosphere felt at odds with the turmoil in Patricia's mind. "Miss Carter," Howard asked, as she drew near, his voice gentle and respectful. Patricia nodded, unable to find her voice. For a moment, she took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Yes, I'm Patricia Carter. Thank you for waiting, Mr. Jenkins." Howard's kind eyes crinkled with concern. "Of course, I can only imagine how difficult this must be for you. The necklace is just over here." He led her towards the bronze statue of Elder Fork's founder, which stood about 8 feet tall in the center of the park. The statue's arm was extended outward in a welcoming gesture. And as they approached, Patricia's breath caught in her throat. There, delicately draped over the statue's outstretched hand, was a necklace that made Patricia's heart skip a beat. Pink. Glass beads gleamed in the late afternoon sunlight, and a familiar heart-shaped pendant hung from the center. Patricia froze, her eyes fixed on the necklace. It was unmistakable. The distinctive pendant that she had special ordered from an artisan shop for Natasha's birthday. But seeing it here in this unexpected place felt surreal. With trembling hands, Patricia stepped closer. Her eyes drinking in every detail, she immediately recognized unique features that only a mother would know. The small chip on one of the beads from when Natasha had accidentally dropped it, and the tiny inscription of NC that Patricia had requested on the back of the heart pendant. Her legs nearly gave out as the reality hit her. This was the first concrete evidence that Natasha had been in this area since her disappearance. Someone had deliberately placed it here to be found. "Is it your daughter's?" Howard asked softly. Watching Patricia's reaction carefully, Patricia nodded, unable to speak for a moment when she finally found her voice. It was barely above a whisper. "Yes, it's Natasha's. I'd recognize it anywhere." She wanted nothing more than to reach out and grab the necklace, to clutch this piece of her daughter close to her heart. But the countless conversations she'd had with the police over the past 2 months had ingrained in her the importance of preserving evidence. The necklace might contain fingerprints or other clues that could lead them to Natasha. With shaking hands, Patricia pulled out her phone and dialed 911. When the operator answered, she struggled to keep her voice steady as she explained the situation. "I'm at Memorial Park. We found physical evidence connected to my missing daughter's case," her necklace as she spoke with the operator. Howard stood nearby. His presence a quiet support. Patricia noticed him gently redirecting a curious jogger who had slowed down to look at the necklace, keeping the area clear within minutes. The sound of sirens filled the air. 2 police cars pulled up with flashing lights, and officers quickly approached the statue. Patricia recognized one of them, Officer Johnson, who had been involved in the initial search for Natasha. "Miss Carter," Officer Johnson said as he reached them, his face serious but kind. "Can you confirm this is your daughter's necklace?" Patricia nodded, pointing out the distinctive features. The chipped bead, the inscription as she did so. Another car pulled up, and Detective Morgan stepped out, his face set in grim determination. "Patricia," he said as he approached, "I got your message. This is potentially significant evidence. We're going to need to secure the area and process this carefully." As the officers began to cordon off the area with yellow tape, treating it as a potential crime scene, Patricia watched as a technician carefully retrieved the necklace, placing it gently in an evidence bag. Detective Morgan turned to Patricia, his voice gentle but firm. "We'll check for fingerprints and DNA, but we'll also review all security footage from businesses surrounding the park. We need to see if we can identify who placed the necklace there." Patricia nodded, her mind reeling after 2 months of nothing. This small piece of jewelry represented the first real lead in finding Natasha. It was proof that her daughter had been here in this park at some point since her disappearance. As she watched the officers work, a young policeman approached Detective Morgan, speaking in a low, urgent tone. Patricia couldn't make out the words, but she saw the detective's expression change, his eyebrows lifting in surprise. Detective Morgan turned to her, a new intensity in his eyes. "Patricia, we may have something. The officer just informed me that they've already obtained security footage from Rosie's cafe across from the park entrance. They found something significant from the day Natasha disappeared." Patricia's heart leaped into her throat. Could this be the breakthrough they'd been waiting for? She sent up a silent prayer. "Please," she thought, "let this lead us to Natasha. Let this bring my baby home." Patricia's heart raced as she followed Detective Morgan to a police vehicle where a laptop had been set up. The screen showed grainy but clear footage from a security camera, the timestamp indicating it was from March 12th, the day Natasha disappeared. "This is footage from Rosie's cafe directly across from the park entrance." Detective Morgan explained, his voice tense with anticipation. "Watch closely." Patricia leaned in, her eyes glued to the screen. At first she saw only the usual foot traffic, people entering and leaving the cafe. Others walking past on the sidewalk, then her breath caught in her throat. They were walking. Into view was a man in a baseball cap and sunglasses. And beside him, holding his hand and licking an ice cream cone, was unmistakably Natasha. "Oh my God," Patricia whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. "That's her. That's my baby." The footage only showed the pair from behind as they entered the park, the man's face obscured by his cap and sunglasses. But his height, build, and distinctive walking pattern were clearly visible. Detective Morgan paused the video, his face grim. "This is significant evidence, Patricia. It confirms Natasha was taken to the park that day, likely by someone who deliberately disguised himself and knew how to avoid showing his face to security cameras." Patricia couldn't tear her eyes away from the frozen image of her daughter looking so small next to the unknown man. But why can't we see where they went in the park? How did the necklace end up on the statue? Unfortunately, the cafe's camera doesn't cover that area of the park. Detective Morgan explained, "We're going to canvass the area for any other cameras that might have caught them. But this is already a huge lead." He turned to Patricia, his expression softening slightly. "We're going to release still images from this footage to local news stations and social media platforms. Someone might recognize the man by his build, clothing, or walking pattern." Patricia nodded, trying to process everything after 2 months of nothing. Suddenly they had tangible evidence that Natasha was alive after leaving her grandmother's yard. But the sight of her daughter with this unknown man filled her with a mixture of hope and terror. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Detective Morgan's face was set in determination. "We pursue this lead aggressively. We'll analyze every frame of this footage, check for any other cameras in the area that might have caught them, and put out an alert for anyone who might recognize the man." He paused, placing a comforting hand on Patricia's shoulder. "I know this is a lot to take in. We're going to need you to prepare for a difficult wait as we analyze all this new evidence. But I promise you, we're not going to rest until we find Natasha." Patricia nodded, feeling simultaneously hopeful and frustrated. They had more information now than they'd had in 2 months, but still no clear path to finding her daughter. "I want to help," she said firmly. "I want to do whatever I can to find her." Detective Morgan nodded, understanding in his eyes. "The best thing you can do right now is to keep spreading the word, share the images we release, talk to anyone who might have seen something." As they wrapped up at the scene, Detective Morgan provided Patricia with digital copies of the footage. "I'll call the moment we have any updates." He promised this necklace discovery might pressure the kidnapper into making a mistake. "We're closer than we've ever been." Patricia clutched the USB drive with the CCTV footage, feeling its weight in her hand. It represented both hope and fear. Proof that Natasha had been alive and in the park that day, but also evidence of the danger she was in as she walked back to her car. Patricia's mind was already racing with plans. She would post the screenshots online, reach out to every contact she had made over the past 2 months, do whatever it took to identify the man who had taken her daughter. The sun was setting as Patricia drove home, casting long shadows across the road. She glanced at the USB drive sitting on the passenger seat, feeling a mixture of determination and dread. Whatever happened next, she knew one thing for certain. She wouldn't rest until Natasha was safe in her arms again the moment Patricia arrived home. She rushed to her laptop, her fingers trembling as she inserted the USB drive containing the CCTV footage. She opened her Find Natasha Carter Facebook page, her heart pounding as she prepared to share the most significant update in 2 months, with careful attention to detail. Patricia uploaded screenshots from the footage, making sure to include clear images of the man's build, clothing, and distinctive gait. She added a detailed description emphasizing his height, the way he walked, and the baseball cap and sunglasses he wore to conceal his face as she typed. Patricia's emotions swung wildly between hope and fear. Seeing Natasha in the footage had been both a relief and a shock. Her daughter was alive, at least on that day, but she was in the hands of someone who had gone to great lengths to hide his identity. "Urgent update," Patricia began. Her post, "New evidence has been discovered in Natasha's case. These images show my daughter with a unknown man on the day she disappeared. If you recognize this man by his build, clothing, or the way he walks, please contact the police immediately. Any information, no matter how small, could be crucial in bringing Natasha home." She hit post and watched as the update instantly began to gain traction within minutes. The post had dozens of shares, and comments started pouring in from community members. Eager to help, Patricia stayed glued to her computer, responding to every message and comment, her eyes scanning desperately for any information that might be useful. Most were well-meaning but unhelpful suggestions or expressions of support. But Patricia couldn't afford to overlook anything as she sifted through the flood of responses. A comment caught her eye. It was from a young couple claiming to have been in the park on the day Natasha disappeared. They said they had seen a man matching the description from the security footage, walking with a little girl who looked distressed, heart racing. Patricia Pansitone immediately sent them a private message, hoping this might be the breakthrough she'd been praying for. But as she began to communicate with them, her hope quickly turned to frustration and anger. Their story began to unravel, details changing with each message. When Patricia pressed for more information, they suddenly demanded money in exchange for what they claimed was crucial evidence with a heavy heart. Patricia realized this was just another cruel scam attempt, one of many she had encountered over the past 2 months. The couple's profile was fake, filled with stolen photos and fabricated information. It was clear they were preying on her desperation, hoping to exploit a mother's anguish for financial gain, fighting back tears of disappointment and rage. Patricia reported the profile to Facebook and blocked the users. She took a deep breath, trying to center herself. This wasn't the first time she had encountered such heartless deceit, and she knew it likely wouldn't be the last, but she couldn't let these setbacks deter her somewhere out there. Someone had real information that could lead her to Natasha. She had to keep searching, had to keep hoping. As the night wore on, Patricia made herself cup after cup of strong coffee, determined to stay alert. She couldn't bear the thought of missing a crucial piece of information because she'd fallen asleep around midnight as she was in the kitchen refilling her coffee mug. A movement outside caught her eye. Patricia glanced out the window and froze. There, standing near her mailbox, was an elderly woman, staring directly at her house, The woman was dressed in a dark coat despite the warm spring night, her silver hair gleaming in the moonlight. She seemed to be deliberately watching Patricia's home, her gaze fixed and unwavering. Patricia's heart raced. Was this someone who had information about Natasha? Or was it something more sinister? Someone connected to the kidnapping? As soon as the woman noticed Patricia looking back at her, she quickly turned away, pretending to be simply walking past. But Patricia wasn't fooled. The woman's behavior was too deliberate, too focused to be coincidental. Without thinking, Patricia rushed to her front door and out onto the porch. She called out, her voice piercing the quiet night. "Please, I need to talk to you." But by the time Patricia reached the street, the mysterious figure had vanished into the darkness. The street was empty and silent, as if the woman had never been there at all. Shaken, Patricia retreated back into her house, double-checking all locks and windows. Was she imagining things? Had the stress and exhaustion of the past 2 months finally taken their toll, causing her to see threats where there were none? She decided she had definitely seen someone watching her house. But why and who was this mysterious woman? With trembling hands, Patricia picked up her phone and dialed Detective Morgan's number. Despite the late hour, it went to voicemail, and Patricia left a message describing the strange woman and what had happened. "I know it's late," she said into the phone, "but I thought you should know about this. It might be nothing, but after everything that's happened, I can't ignore it. Please call me back when you can." After ending the call, Patricia returned to her laptop, but found it hard to focus on the comments and messages. Her mind kept drifting back to the woman outside. Was she someone who knew something about Natasha's disappearance? Or was she connected to the man in the video? As the night deepened, Patricia forced herself to try to sleep. Though her mind raced with questions, she lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Her thoughts a chaotic mix of hope from the new evidence and fear of what it might mean. Just before dawn, Patricia finally drifted into a fitful sleep, her dreams filled with shadowy figures and her daughter's voice calling out for help. Even in sleep, she couldn't escape the worry and fear that had become her constant companions. Since Natasha's disappearance, the first rays of sunlight were just beginning to peek through the curtains when Patricia jolted awake. For a moment, she was disoriented, the events of the previous day flooding back to her in a rush. The necklace, the video footage, the mysterious woman outside her house. It all swirled in her mind as she struggled to fully wake up. Glancing at the clock, Patricia realized she had only managed to sleep for a couple of hours, but there was no time to waste. She needed to get to the police station to see if there were any updates on the necklace or the video footage as she got dressed. Patricia's mind raced with possibilities. Had anyone recognized the man in the video? Had the police found any fingerprints on the necklace? And what about the woman she had seen outside her house last night? Patricia grabbed a quick cup of coffee and headed out the door, her body running on adrenaline and determination as she walked towards her car. Movement at the far end of her street caught her eye. Her heart nearly stopped as she recognized the same elderly woman from the previous night, unmistakably watching her house again. This time, Patricia didn't hesitate. She immediately began walking towards the woman, calling out, "Excuse me, I need to speak with you." The woman appeared startled, her eyes widening as she realized Patricia was approaching. She began to walk away hastily, her movements stiff and hurried. But Patricia was quicker. She caught up to the woman, her voice firm but polite as she said, "Please, I just want to talk. Who are you? Why have you been watching my house?" The elderly woman, now that Patricia could see her up close, appeared to be in her late 70s. Her face was deeply lined, her silver hair neatly combed back. She seemed torn between fleeing and speaking, her mouth opening and closing as if she was struggling to find the right words. "I saw the pictures online," the woman finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The girl." Patricia's heart raced. "My daughter. Natasha, do you know something about her?" The woman's composure crumbled, her eyes filling with tears. I think the man who took your daughter is my son." Patricia froze, her mind reeling from this unexpected revelation. The woman continued, her voice heavy with shame and fear. His name is Robert Dawson. He was released from prison 6 months ago. He served time for attempting to lure a young girl from an online dating platform. Patricia's hands shook as she reached for her phone, her eyes never leaving the woman's face. "What's your name?" she asked, her voice surprisingly steady despite the turmoil inside her. "Martha," the woman replied. "Martha Dawson." As Patricia dialed Detective Morgan's number, she kept her other hand on Martha's arm, ensuring the woman didn't try to leave. When the detective answered, Patricia quickly explained the situation, her words tumbling out in a rush. Within minutes, several police cars arrived at the scene. Martha appeared cooperative, but deeply distressed, repeatedly apologizing and saying she had hoped her son had changed after prison Detective Morgan arrived, shortly after, his face grim as he approached Patricia and Martha. "We need to move quickly," he said. "Mrs. Dawson, we're going to need you to take us to your son's residence immediately." As they drove to Robert Dawson's house, Patricia's mind was in turmoil. They were closer than ever to finding Natasha. But the reality of what her daughter might have endured at the hands of this man was almost too much to bear. When they arrived at the small, rundown property on the outskirts of town, Patricia saw several police cars already there. Detective Morgan had dispatched units to the address. As soon as Patricia had called, an officer approached their car as they pulled up. "Detective," he said, his voice tense, "we found one of Natasha's shoes inside the house during our preliminary search. It confirms we're on the right track, but neither Robert nor the girl are in the residence." Patricia felt her heart sink. They were so close. But Natasha was still out of reach. She turned to Martha, who was looking at the empty garage with a mixture of fear and resignation. "Robert owns an old blue pickup truck," Martha said quietly. "It's not here. He must have fled with the girl after seeing his image on the news and social media." Detective Morgan pressed Martha for more information, his voice urgent but controlled. "Mrs. Dawson, we need to know everything about your son's history, anything that might help us find them." Martha's composure crumbled, tears streaming down her face as she revealed more about Robert's criminal past. He's been in trouble before. Her voice barely above a whisper. "A few years ago, he lured a young girl through an online dating platform. He took her to a secluded area in a forest. But thankfully the police caught him before he could harm her." The officers exchanged grim looks, quickly moving to verify Martha's information against Robert's criminal record. Within minutes, they confirmed everything she had said. Detective Morgan immediately began issuing orders, mobilizing search units to focus on nearby forests, especially Blackwater Forest, which was closest to their current location. As the activity swirled around her, Patricia stood still, her eyes fixed on Robert Dawson's house. Somewhere out there, her daughter was with this man, scared and alone. The thought filled her with a determination she had never known before. "We're coming, Natasha," she whispered, her hands clenched into fists. "Just hold on a little longer. We're coming to bring you home." The next hour passed in a blur of activity. Patricia found herself sitting in a police car outside Robert Dawson's house, watching as officers searched the property and coordinated with search teams through their radios. The air was thick with tension, every minute feeling like an eternity. As they waited for news, beside her sat Martha Dawson, the elderly woman's face a mask of shame and sorrow. In quiet, halting words, Martha began to share fragments of Robert's troubled childhood and history of mental health issues that were never properly addressed. "I thought prison had changed him," Martha murmured, her voice barely audible. "I wanted to believe he could be better. I never imagined he would." Her voice trailed off, unable to complete the thought. Patricia found it difficult to look at Martha, knowing this woman had raised the man who had taken Natasha. But she also recognized that without Martha's courage in coming forward, they might never have gotten this close to finding her daughter. Road cameras along all major routes leading out of Elder Fork had been alerted to look for Robert's blue pickup truck. Patricia watched as officers relayed information about possible sightings, each report causing a momentary surge of hope before being dismissed as a false lead patrol units were being dispatched to set up roadblocks at key intersections, their lights flashing as they sped away from the scene. Other officers were going door to door in the surrounding neighborhoods, showing Robert's picture and asking if anyone had seen him or his vehicle. Meanwhile, K-9 units were being prepared for deployment. These highly trained dogs would be crucial in tracking Natasha's scent through the dense undergrowth of Blackwater Forest. A helicopter thundered overhead, its searchlight sweeping across the treetops as it began an aerial survey of the forest. The pilot's voice crackled over the radio, reporting on clearings and abandoned structures that ground teams should investigate. Detective Morgan approached the car, his face etched with determination. "We're leaving no stone unturned," he assured Patricia. "Every available resource is being utilized. We're going to find her." As Patricia watched this massive operation unfold, she felt a mix of hope and fear. The scale of the search was impressive, a testament to how seriously the police were taking Natasha's case. But it also drove home the urgency of the situation and the dangers her daughter might be facing. The minutes ticked by. Agonizingly slowly, Patricia's eyes darted between the officers outside and her phone silently willing it to ring with news of Natasha. She found herself holding her breath each time an officer approached the car, hoping for an update after what felt like an eternity, but was actually about 20 minutes. Patricia noticed an officer receiving information over the radio. His expression shifted, and he looked in her direction with an intensity that made her heart race. The officer approached their car, opening the door. "Miss Carter," he said, his voice carefully controlled. They found Natasha alive. A K-9 unit located her and Robert in a remote area of Blackwater Forest. Robert has been taken into custody. Patricia felt the world tilt around her. She heard the words, but they seemed to come from far away. Natasha was alive. They had found her after 2 months of fear and uncertainty. Her daughter was coming home. Tears began to stream down Patricia's face as the reality of the situation hit her. She barely registered Martha's gasp beside her, or the officer's gentle hand on her shoulder. "They're bringing Natasha to the police station." Now the officer continued, "Medical personnel are waiting there to examine her. We can take you there immediately." Patricia nodded, unable to form words, as they drove to the station. Her mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. Was Natasha hurt? What had she endured during these 2 months? How would this experience affect her? The drive to the station felt both endless and far too short. Patricia wasn't sure if she was ready to face the reality of what had happened to her daughter. But she was desperate to hold Natasha in her arms again. As they pulled up to the station, Patricia saw an ambulance parked outside, its lights flashing. Her heart clenched at the sight, fear mixing with her relief. She practically ran from the car to the station entrance. Her legs feeling weak and unsteady. Inside the station was a flurry of activity. Officers and medical personnel moved quickly, their voices a low hum of urgency. Patricia stood in the middle of it all, her eyes searching desperately for any sign of Natasha. And then suddenly, there she was. Natasha appeared at the end of the hallway, escorted by a female officer and a paramedic. She looked small and fragile, her clothes dirty and her hair tangled, but she was alive, and when her eyes met Patricia's, the world seemed to stop. "Mom!" Natasha cried out, her voice breaking. Patricia rushed forward, gathering her daughter in her arms. She held Natasha tightly, feeling the girl's body shake with sobs. Patricia's own tears flowed freely as she stroked Natasha's hair, murmuring words of comfort and love. "I'm here, baby," Patricia whispered. "You're safe now. I've got you." As she held her daughter, Patricia was acutely aware of the mix of emotions surging through her: relief and joy at having Natasha back, wearied with rage at what her child had endured, and fear of the long road of recovery ahead. But for now, in this moment, all that mattered was that Natasha was here alive and in her arms. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Patricia silently vowed to do whatever it took to help her daughter heal, to protect her, and support her through whatever came next as the medical staff gently approached to begin their examination. Patricia held Natasha's hand tightly. "I'm right here," she promised. "I'm not going anywhere. We're going to get through this together." Natasha nodded, her grip on Patricia's hand tightening. And as they moved forward to face whatever came next, Patricia felt a strength she didn't know she possessed. They had survived the nightmare of separation. Now united once more, they would face the future together, one step at a time. As the initial shock of the reunion began to subside, Detective Morgan approached Patricia and Natasha. His face was a mixture of relief and concern, as he gently explained that they needed to speak with Patricia privately. "Natasha will be with our child psychologist and social worker." He assured them they're specially trained to handle situations like this. "We'll make sure she's comfortable and safe while we talk." Patricia hesitated, reluctant to let Natasha out of her sight even for a moment. But she knew this was necessary. She knelt down to Natasha's eye level, cupping her daughter's face gently. "Tweety, I need to talk to Detective Morgan for a little while. These nice people are going to stay with you. Okay, I'll be back as soon as I can. You're safe now." Natasha nodded, her eyes wide and frightened. "Promise you'll come back." "I promise," Patricia said firmly. "I'm not going far. I love you so much." With a heavy heart, Patricia watched as Natasha was led away by the kind-fed social worker. Then she turned to Detective Morgan, steeling herself for whatever he needed to tell her. They walked to a small interview room. The detective's face grave as they sat down. Patricia could feel the weight of what was coming pressing down on her. "Patricia." Detective Morgan began, his voice gentle but serious. "I know this is incredibly difficult, but there are some things we need to discuss about what happened to Natasha during her captivity." Patricia nodded, her throat tight. "I understand. Please, just tell me." The detective took a deep breath. "Robert Dawson has confessed to abducting Natasha from her grandmother's backyard. His confession contains some disturbing information that you need to be aware of." Patricia felt her heart racing, her palms sweating. She wanted to cover her ears to run from whatever terrible truth was coming. But she forced herself to stay to listen for Natasha's sake. "While we won't go into details right now," Detective Morgan continued, his voice heavy with compassion, "Robert has admitted to inappropriate conduct with Natasha during her captivity. We will need your strength and cooperation as we build our case for prosecution." The words hit Patricia like a physical blow. She had feared something like this, had nightmares about it, but hearing it confirmed was devastating. She felt a wave of nausea wash over her, followed by a surge of rage so intense it frightened her. What do you mean by inappropriate?" Patricia managed to ask, her voice barely above a whisper. Detective Morgan shook his head gently. "We don't have all the details yet, and we don't want to push Natasha too hard right now. The most important thing is that she's safe now, and we'll make sure she gets all the support and help she needs." Patricia nodded numbly, her mind reeling. How could anyone do such a thing to an innocent child? To her child, the anger and pain threatened to overwhelm her, seeing her distress. Detective Morgan leaned forward, his voice earnest. "Patricia, I know this is incredibly difficult to hear, but I want you to know that we have victim advocates and child psychologists ready to support both you and Natasha through this process. With proper support, children can recover from even the most traumatic experiences." Patricia took a shaky breath, trying to center herself. What do I do now? How do I help her? "The most important thing is to be there for her," the detective said. "Let her know she's safe, that she's loved, and that what happened wasn't her fault. We'll provide you with resources and support to help guide you through this process." As they continue to talk, discussing the next steps in the investigation and the support services available, Patricia felt a strange mix of emotions. The joy of having Natasha back was now tempered by the knowledge of what she had endured. But underneath it all was a steely determination. No matter what it took, she would help her daughter heal from this trauma. When they finished talking, Patricia stood on shaky legs. "Can I see Natasha now?" Detective Morgan nodded, leading her back to where Natasha was waiting with the social worker. When Patricia rejoined Natasha after her conversation with Detective Morgan, she saw her daughter with new eyes. The weariness, confusion, and fear that now clouded Natasha's once bright expression were painfully evident, yet beneath the trauma, Patricia could glimpse the resilience and strength that had allowed her daughter to survive such a harrowing ordeal. As she embraced Natasha, Patricia made a silent promise to her daughter. No matter how long or difficult the journey ahead might be, she would do whatever it took to help Natasha heal and reclaim her life. The social worker suggested they take a break outside the station, recognizing the need for fresh air and a moment of calm amidst the whirlwind of emotions and activity as Patricia, Natasha, and the social worker stood together outside discussing the next steps in gentle tones. A familiar figure approached them. It was Howard Jenkins, the park janitor, whose attentiveness had played such a crucial role in Natasha's rescue. He had heard the news of Natasha's safe return and had come to the station to see how they were doing. Patricia's eyes welled with tears as she saw him. Without hesitation, she embraced Howard, her voice thick with emotion as she said, "Thank you. Without your attentiveness and compassion, we might never have found Natasha." Howard, clearly moved, patted Patricia's back gently. "I'm just glad I could help," he said softly, his kind eyes moving to Natasha, who was watching the interaction with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. After a few moments of conversation with Howard, during which Patricia expressed her profound gratitude, once more she turned to Natasha. "We need to go back inside now, sweetie," she explained gently. "We need to talk to the officers again, but it will all be over soon, and then we can go home together." Natasha nodded her small hand, seeking out Patricia's as they walked back into the station. As they crossed the lobby, Patricia noticed a hunched figure approaching them. It was Martha Dawson, her eyes downcast and her shoulders slumped, her face a map of shame and regret. Martha's voice trembled as she spoke. "I'm so sorry for what my son did to your little girl. I thought he had changed. I never thought he would." She trailed off, unable to complete the sentence, her words choked with emotion. Patricia found it difficult to even look at Martha, knowing this woman had raised the monster who hurt her daughter. But she also recognized that without Martha's courage in coming forward, they might never have found Natasha. After a moment's hesitation, Patricia nodded. "It's not your fault what your son did." She said, her voice steady, despite the turmoil of emotions within her. "Thank you for coming forward when you did." Martha wiped away tears, her voice stronger as she promised, "I'll cooperate fully with the police. And in court, I'll tell them everything I know about my son Robert. I want him to face justice for what he did to your daughter. He's sick and he needs help, but he also needs to pay for what he's done as they separated." Martha walking toward the exit, while Patricia guided Natasha deeper into the station. An officer approached them. The officer explained that they were preparing an interview room to finalize their statements. He suggested they wait in the waiting area with the social worker until everything was ready. Patricia and Natasha settled into the waiting room, Natasha curling up against her mother's side as they sat there. Patricia's mind wandered to the necklace, the crucial piece that had led to everything. She stroked her daughter's hair gently and asked Natasha, "Do you know how your necklace ended up on that statue's hand in the park?" Natasha tensed slightly at the question, her voice small and hesitant as she replied, "He told me he's a friend of you, and you are in the park. We got ice cream. But then he became angry. He took the necklace from me and threw it away." Patricia's heart clenched at her daughter's words. Realizing that somehow the necklace must have ended up on the statue, looking down at Natasha's face, Patricia felt an overwhelming sense that this wasn't just coincidence. The park janitor noticing the necklace, Martha seeing the Facebook post. All of it coming together so perfectly to save Natasha. It seemed almost guided by something beyond mere chance. The officer returned, informing them that the interview room was ready. As they stood to follow him, Patricia made a silent vow to do everything in her power to help her daughter heal From this horrific ordeal walking towards the interview room, Patricia was struck by a chilling realization. Predators like Robert Dawson lurked everywhere, hiding behind normal appearances while harboring monstrous intentions. She understood now, with terrifying clarity, how close she had come to never seeing her daughter again. With her arm protectively around Natasha's shoulders, Patricia walked toward the interview room. She was profoundly grateful for her daughter's return, but acutely aware of the long, difficult journey of healing that lay ahead for both of them. As they entered the room, Patricia took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. The road ahead would be challenging, but they would face it together with love, support, and time. They would find their way back to happiness and peace. For now, Patricia focused on the present moment, on being there for Natasha as they took this next crucial step in their journey towards healing and justice.